good timing because, yeah, surprisingly, people didn't have any questions.
You mean?
Okay, so I gave a little bit intro in the beginning. I didn't say much. I just said that obviously everybody can see your name there, Doreen Giuliano, and that you go by the nickname Mother Justice, and that your son John Giuca is still sitting in prison, and that you've been fighting, and that when it comes to the question of what will a mother do to save her son, it is the answer for you is everything, anything, whatever it takes.
Right.
Right.
Most mothers could if they could, right?
Right. That's what I said. I mean, I don't fault you a bit because I would do the same thing. Most parents will, most parents will fight to the death for their children.
Right.
And when you're talking about for John, he's going to be there for life, right? I mean, he does have a life, or no, how many years?
No, he's not going to be there. I'm sorry.
Well, he's not going to, but I mean, what was his sentence?
Oh, his sentence was 25 to life.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. So you have to keep fighting for him because otherwise, what else is going to happen? So anyway, I've gotten way ahead of myself here. So what I want to do is you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about John and maybe tell a little bit about him before this all happened. Mm-hmm. And exactly, I know your story is crazy, and we already said it could take like 2 hours to cover it all. But just give a brief overview of like I said, who you are, who John is, and what happened like that got him incarcerated. What the crime was.
I know that most people aren't going to tune in till 7 o'clock. So should we just do some small talk before 7? I know, half my family is tuning in at 7.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
I don't know. I mean, do you have viewers now? Are you able? I don't know how this stuff works, but are you able to see if you have viewers?
Right. I have about 120 people watching right now, and these people will stick around.
Oh.
Because the one thing I will tell everybody when I talked to Doreen last week or earlier this week, I don't even know where I am. It was earlier this week. She is a little bit concerned because some people have looked at her like she's crazy because of some of the things that, she claims are going on when it comes to her son's conviction. And I was like, oh, you don't know your audience here. Like, we will get it. Nobody here is going to think you're crazy. Everybody's going to be nodding their head going, uh-huh, yep.
These things actually go on here in America. I mean, they hide evidence. They fabricate evidence. Mm-hmm. And threaten witnesses to testify. Brooklyn is crazy. I didn't even know that this stuff happens until it happened to us.
Right. And I think that's the case with most people. They don't know. And a lot of people don't get involved until it's happened to them. So it's hard to make anything change. And we'll get to that too at the end. But
I was so naive. I thought, if somebody got convicted, then they must be guilty. Right. I didn't have a clue, and to find out that it's really, truly only about the win. I mean, of course, we have some good prosecutors. Of course, we have some good detectives. But it's almost as if they tag team to get this guy, this so-called bad guy. And then they figure, I said to myself, Tracy, how do they sleep at night when they know that they are manipulating the evidence and coercing? How do they sleep? And I think for some of them that they figure, well, he must have did something bad. He was on the bad, track doing bad things. So what if he didn't do this particular crime? Let's put him away and get him off the streets. I mean, I think that's their mentality. I really am unsure, but I don't get how they could sleep at night knowing they set somebody up. And this is rampant.
Right.
They do it all the time.
There seems to be almost a playbook that they all seem to follow because you hear these common threads through so many of these wrongful convictions that, it's the same story over and over and over again about, so it's like, I guess, oh, this worked for one person, unethical prosecutor. So then, well, it's going to work for this unethical prosecutor. And it does seem like they're just following a checklist of how to wrongfully convict somebody. But,
it's funny that you say that. I don't mean to cut you off, but
that's okay.
Anna Nicolazzi, the prosecutor in my son's case, she has a formula because I studied this woman, and her formula. She brags constantly on how she had 35 straight wins. She never lost a case.
Right.
Now, we all know that we all can't be winners at all times. I mean, sometimes you just lose, choke it up. But she brags 35 straight wins. So I decided to look into some of her other cases. And it's a formula she uses over and over again. And she doesn't switch it up, maybe just a little bit, because it works. It gets convictions. She pulls at the heartstrings of the juror members. She ridicules the lawyer, the defense counsel. She actually fabricates evidence. She fabricates evidence, and I think in her mind, by the time we unravel, by the time we figure out exactly what she did, 10, 20 years pass. And now she's no longer in that office. And keep in mind, which your audience may know, they have immunity anyway. So
Right.
if they fabricate, lie, cheat, do whatever to get that conviction, they don't have to worry because nothing's going to happen to them.
Right.
And that is, I mean, that's sad. That is so sad. That's why there's 2.3 million people incarcerated. That's why there's so many wrongful convictions.
Right.
And the shame of it all is that the district attorneys and the judges, it's almost as if they tag team. They're okay with it. And then they dig their heels in. When you come back with a 440, when you come back on an appeal, they dig their heels in. They won't say, okay, the prosecutor screwed up, let me fix this. They don't do that. They dig their heels in and they continue to fight it, no matter how ridiculous they look. And this
Right.
is what happened with John. We keep finding evidence of very serious misconduct in my son's case. This happened in 2003 was the crime in Brooklyn, New York. And in 2005, my son was convicted of felony murder and sent to prison for 25 years to life. All along, early on, Tracy, I kept saying the prosecutor is going to fix it. The prosecutor is going to come to their senses and realize that they made a big mistake. Boy, was I a fool.
Mm-hmm.
What is that sound in the background? You hear it?
No. You're kind of fading in and out. I'm not sure why, but is anybody else having an issue hearing a sound in the background? Oh, you know what? Maybe it's my phone you're hearing. I'm not sure. It's vibrating. Could that have been it?
It was more like a hissing sound, but it's gone now.
Okay.
To get back to the point, all along I kept saying they're going to clear this up. They're going to clear this up. What happened is it was Columbus Day weekend, 2003. My husband and I, we went to Florida for a weekend vacation, and we left my son Matthew at 16 years old and John at 20 home alone. It was a 3-day weekend that turned into a nightmare. Long story short, John went out with some friends, bar hopping in the clubs in Manhattan, and there was a few kids that were stranded. They had no way of getting back to, I believe, Fairfield University. That's where they were from. It was a bunch of college kids. My son at the time was going to John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Manhattan. So the hissing is back, just so you know. And my voice going in and out?
Yeah, just for a second there. Yeah, I don't know what could be causing it. Did that happen when Sandy was on, everyone? It's definitely my phone vibrating. Yeah, that's what it is. My phone just vibrated again. Let me just turn my phone off. Sorry, everyone. Don't message me right now because I don't know why this is doing this, but let me just turn it off so it's not a pain. Okay.
So anyway, it happened in 2003. And then 2004, my son was arrested along with another young man named Antonio Russo. And they were sent to, they call it holding, it's Rikers Island. And John waited about 8 months, and they were brought to trial. It was election year, And that says a lot. It was election year. It was a very tough year for Charles Hines, who was our district attorney at the time. And he had a tough race. And we do believe that he needed to win this in order to win the election. So anyway, so it was a trial, a dual trial. There was 24 jurors. I'm not sure if your viewers know that, you know, you can have 12 jurors for John and 12 for Antonio Russo. It was the first time I've ever heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Someone asked a question right away, so let me just get these right away back in. I was going to wait, but well, Rhonda said, "Oh, I think I watched something about your son's case. Was there ever anything on TV, news, documentary about your son?" Rhonda, Doreen was actually focused on that episode of 2020. So if you've ever watched 2020, it was called the episode's called Undercover Mother. I believe I've watched it on Hulu. I watched it on Hulu last year, and it's still on there. So if you want to check it out, you can watch it on Hulu. And then I actually did a video on John's case last year. So you probably have heard a lot about this. And I actually meant to post it back in my Facebook group because people wanted to kind of, brush up on the case again, but I forgot. So, but yeah, that's where she has a big article in Vanity Fair, New York Post. She's been a lot of places. She's done a lot of interviews. So she's an expert at this. But yeah, the case has been covered a lot because it's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. The New York law.
Oops, the noise is back. I don't know what to tell you guys.
I believe it. Can you shut off the phone?
I did turn off my phone. I have no idea what the noise is. I can put on my headphones. Maybe that'll help. I can try. We can see.
It sounds like a hissing.
And then somebody asked, EJG, you asked about conviction. Conviction integrity units. We will get to that. That is actually a story in itself right there with this case. So
yeah, we have been fighting this for 15 years, Tracy. So, I mean, there's so many legs and so many layers. And I mean, I would need 6 months on this show to explain all the layers. But anyway, my son's name is John Giuca, and that's Giuca. So right from the very beginning, when the jurors came back with a guilty verdict within 2 hours on no evidence, it was a he said, she said. There was no forensic, there was no eyewitness, there was no confession, nothing of the sort, nothing. And I couldn't believe that they came back with guilty when there was absolutely no evidence. It was so frustrating. And then, like I said, many, many layers. So fast forward the clock. Yeah, I decided to find out what happened behind the scenes. Why did they come up with a guilty verdict when there was absolutely no evidence? And even the prosecutor, in her opening, she had told the jurors, this is not a case of DNA. There is no eyewitnesses. There is no forensic evidence. This is a trial on testimony only. So, as years go by, everyone but one person, everyone that testified against my son recanted. They all recanted, and they said they lied, and they said why they lied. So now you understand why they came back with a guilty verdict. Because they were lied to. They were lied to. The judge was lied to. They were all lied to. So I went undercover. I changed my appearance. I transformed myself because I wanted to get close to the jurors to find out what went on. But at first, I hired a private investigator. And the private investigator knocked on several of their doors to ask them questions like, what made you come back with a guilty verdict on testimony only? And he didn't have any luck at all, Tracy. They weren't opening the doors. Some slammed the doors. Some did say a few things to him and said, well, he looked guilty. It was bad. So that's why I decided, because I was wasting a lot of money on hiring private investigators. So I figured I'll do it myself.
This is why you're forced to be reckoned with. Yes, because it is gutsy. I mean, it's not just, oh, hi, Eric. I know. Okay. I didn't know that was you. Okay. Yeah, it's not, it's gutsy. It was dangerous. You know,
Dangerous.
yeah, for sure. It was completely disruptive to your marriage.
Family.
Yeah, and the rest of your family. It was you laid it all on the line to get this information. So what happened once you did that?
Well, I got some incredible information. First, let me tell your viewers that this wasn't easy. This was very, very difficult, but I knew that I had to do it because the private investigators weren't having any luck. And what do? Nothing? And let my son rot in prison for 25 years? So I really felt like I had no choice. But then I couldn't go knocking on the doors because I'm the defendant's mother. For sure, they were going to slam the door in my face. So then I came up with the idea that I will change my appearance. And it kind of escalated from there. I happened to target this one particular juror because I already found out that he should not have been on that jury because there was a rumor that he knew my son, knew of my son, knew my son's friends, that this juror, his juror number 8, his cousin dated one of my son's friends. And as we all know, that before you are selected to be a juror member, you take a questionnaire and they ask you those questions. Do you know anybody on the witness list? Do you know the defendant? And he lied. He lied so that he could sneak onto that jury and convict my son. Now, I didn't know why at the very beginning, but when I decided to change my appearance and hope to God that he does not recognize me, that I could get close to him and start asking him questions. But it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, like, I found out so much more than I anticipated. So much more. I found out that's when I found out his cousin dated one of John's friends. And I also found out, Tracy, this is still very upsetting to me because we still didn't get a fair trial. So, yeah, he told me that he didn't like John because he believed John to be Jewish and that he hated Jews. Now, previously, he has been telling me all about the Jewish people and how they are, and he was extremely prejudiced. So, are you still there? You can still see me?
Yep.
So, he goes on and on about the Jewish this and Jewish that, and I had to just stuff it down into my gut and smile and laugh because I didn't want to call him on anything. I wanted him to like me. So, I was very agreeable. Anyway, he told me that he believed John to be Jewish and he hated Jews and he had a right to hate Jews. And I said, what makes you think he's a Jew? And he said his last name. His last name is Giuca. Giuca, John Giuca. And once I realized what I was dealing with, I was so disgusted. It took me a few days to recuperate from it. But yes, I went undercover. I rented an apartment. I invited him over. I fed him.
Well, and let's be clear, John is not Jewish, so he was wrong.
Jewish, but
right,
regardless,
right.
You know, he even said to me, I said, but what was the evidence? This was a different day because he loved talking about the case. It was like the highlight of his life was being on this high profile case. It was a very high profile case even before I went undercover. It was very big. So he actually said these words. It was meant to be, it was in the stars for him to be on this jury because he knew John's friends and how they were. So he didn't like John's friends, so he took it out on John. He had told me that John's friends from Bensonhurst in Brooklyn picked on his little brother. Several times used to pick on his brother. So I feel like he never stood up for his little brother being picked on by these kids that were also, his name is Jason Allo. They were Jason Allo's friends. So John and Jason had mutual friends. So if you're judging my son for having these particular friends, they were your friends too. And he didn't stand up to them to protect his little brother. And he had the opportunity to take it out on my son, and he took it because I said to him, so, Jason, what was the evidence? I want to know what's the evidence that was against this kid. And he said, there was none. The kid was a Jew, and I hate Jews. That's when he said that. So there was no, it was a he said, she said trial. And for 15 years, I have been begging our district attorney, our current district attorney, Eric Gonzalez, for a fair trial. That's all I want, is a fair trial. We already know 4 witnesses lied in court. They lied to the jury. So don't we get a fair trial? Because that's why we had this juror number 8 who hated John for being Jewish. We have 4 recantations, and the most egregious evidence that we have is the prosecutor hid evidence from the jury, hid evidence from the defense, the judge, and the jury. And that's why we got a reversal in 2018, a reversal of the conviction.
And it was the intermediary court. So it was your appellate court that actually overturned the conviction. But then it was your court of appeals, which is our Supreme Court. It's the highest court that reinstated the conviction, which normally they wouldn't even take a case like that.
It's fishy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because we learned from Brendan's case. Brendan's conviction was overturned by the 7th Circuit, and they had an en banc review, and that's where he lost. And he appealed to the Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court, and they wouldn't take the case because that's not usually a case that you would take. A fact-based case is not something that any high court usually will take. So it's very interesting. It's usually only if it's something that's going to be change existing law or something like that. That's usually the only time they take cases. So it really surprised me from a legal standpoint, which is what I always talk about. It always surprised me from that point of view that they would even take that case, let alone reinstate that conviction. It didn't really make a lot of sense.
And don't forget, in the Court of Appeals, the Second Department, it was a unanimous decision. All the judges on the panel said, reverse this conviction based on prosecutorial misconduct. Now, explain to your viewers what exactly that prosecutorial misconduct was.
Well, Anna Nicolazzi, who went on to actually get her own TV show, which really pisses me off. It really does.
She is an actress, and if you really think about it, the courtroom is a stage. It's a performance. So it kind of fits with her personality.
Well, this is something that we're a little bit familiar with because we've dealt with jailhouse snitches in Steve's case before. And yeah, their testimony is ridiculous. But there was a jailhouse liars. That what?
Jailhouse liars.
Jailhouse liars, yeah. This jailhouse snitch, who was named John Avito, he testified that John Giuca confessed to him in prison. And he also testified that he was not getting any consideration for his testimony, meaning they didn't offer him anything and he was just doing the right thing. He just wanted to testify and do the right thing, like all jailhouse snitches. They just want to do the right thing. This is so insane because it's not just a matter of thinking something happened or believing something happened. There is documented proof that this prosecutor, the same prosecutor who was prosecuting the case, actually, okay, here, let me back up a little bit. John Avito was supposed to be doing a drug program. Okay, he was supposed to be taking a drug program as part of a probation or whatever he was on. He didn't show up for it. They swore out a bench warrant for him. Okay, so he got put in front of the judge, and this prosecutor, the same one prosecuting the case, Anna Nicolazzi, yes, she actually showed up at court for his hearing on this bench warrant.
And she told the judge that he was assisting them in a criminal case. So she basically went to bat for him and said, like, can you cut him a break, cut him some slack, because he's helping us out.
That's the benefit.
Right. That is the benefit. So, and she actually went into court, and it's documented that she went in and did this. So it's not like she can say, I didn't know about that, or I didn't, like, I didn't do that. And then, so to make it worse, she knowingly lied to the jury. Not only did she allow him to lie, then she lied to the jury, because she said he is not getting anything for his testimony. He should be the only one that you should believe, because he's getting nothing for this testimony.
Can I cut you off for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. This is your story. I was just talking the legal part of it that just disgusted me.
He absconded from his drug program, and the judge had said, when she told him he needed to go there and get his head straight, that if you screw up one more time, you're going to be facing 3.5 to 7 years in prison. I'm not going to give you no more chances. So he absconded, got high, knew he screwed up, and then called the detective who brought him to the district attorney, because he knew now he was facing 3.5 to 7. And he said, I was in Rikers Island with Giuca, and Giuca confessed to me. So she did go to bat for him. He didn't do the 3.5 to 7. Instead, he went home. She had a conversation with the Judge Parker, off the bench conversation. And like I said, the judge said, apparently we're giving you another chance. So he went home instead. So, all along during trial, we knew he was lying. And give credit to his trial attorney at that time. He knew he was lying, but he didn't have the proof of it. And he kept saying, this guy is sitting up here. He should be coming out from the back, meaning with handcuffs on. He should be in prison. Why is this man up on the stand saying that John confessed? Something's not right here. And he said it. And then Nicolazzi ridiculed him in front of the jury. She called him a clown. And she said, the defense would like you to believe that this guy is, it's not verbatim, but she said that this guy, John Oviedo, is not telling the truth. Guess what? He wasn't telling the truth.
Right. He recanted later.
Yeah. To his credit also, he cleaned up his act. And I'm not sure of the year. I think it was 2013 or 14. He came clean. We had a hearing on this newfound evidence. He cried. He was really, really upset about lying. And he said, I lied. And he said, with all cameras on him, he looked at John. John couldn't take it. He was so devastated. And John Oviedo said, and I'm sorry, John, I'm sorry, but I benefited. I can't even talk about that without crying, because John is saying, I'm doing life in prison based on your lies. But he said to the judge, he said, I was scared to go to prison. I was facing 3.5 to 7 years. I was scared. On top of that, he had a drug habit. Who wants to go to prison on a drug habit? And Nicolazzi lied. If she would have told the jury that he is benefiting for, this testimony, and he's getting a deal, then we wouldn't have had an issue. So the judge denied us. Judge Danny Chun, he said that John Oviedo's testimony was laughable. His confession that he lied in 2005, it was laughable. So then we appealed that, and the judges agreed with us. They said Nicolazzi should have turned over that information. It was for the jury to decide whether Oviedo is lying or not. It wasn't for her to gatekeep the evidence. She should have turned it over and let them decide.
Gee, does that sound familiar to everybody? About the whole gatekeeping the evidence? We've dealt with so much of that in this case. It's ridiculous. And this isn't even the only thing, she did. One of the things we talk about in Stephen Brendan's case is that she, like the prosecutor changed his theories from Steve's case to Brendan's case, like two completely different theories of the crime. Nicolazzi, she changed the theory of the case in the middle of the trial. she presented two different theories, completely different theories to the jury. So it's like, it's one thing to say you presented two different cases and two different theories in two separate trials. This was in the same trial. At one time it was, he's this wannabe mobster, and that he, wanted someone to make his bones or whatever. So he ordered this hit on this kid, and then the other thing was about sitting on it, because he got mad at him for sitting on a glass table.
I don't know if it was a glass table, but the coffee table is wooden. But yeah, supposedly John got upset because he sat on a table. John didn't even know what they were talking about. It turned out that his friend Tommy had said to him, "Hey, that's not a chair, that's a table." And he didn't even he was like, "Wait a minute, Tommy, this is at the party, if you want to call it a party." And I hope your viewers understand that they came to my house because they were stranded in Manhattan in 2003. They were all bar hopping. And Mark Fisher and his friends, they got stranded. So John said, "My mother and father are not home. Come to my house." So it was an impromptu get together. And yeah, supposedly he got mad for sitting on the table and had him killed because of that. And in addition, it's supposedly John liked the same girl Mark Fisher liked. And it just gets so convoluted.
And Mark and John did not know each other. We should probably cover that. Mark met John because of a mutual friend that Mark was with. And so she was going to John, so they went to John's. And the only thing tying John to the crime at all is the fact that John had given Mark a blanket because he was going to crash there. And when Mark left, he was found like 40 minutes later. He was shot 5 times and he had the blanket still. And that is literally the only thing tying John to this case at all. There's no physical evidence at all tying him to this case. None, not a single shred of it. And the person whose house he was found across from happened to be the original suspect. And he just happens to be Albert Cleary. He just happens to be the one witness that didn't recant because, it wasn't his best interest. But this is where it gets really crazy. You can tell this part if you want. I know it's really convoluted, but if you want to just try to give an overview of who his mother was and how that worked.
Let's let them understand that at about 6:30 in the morning, Albert and Angel DiPietro left my house to go to Albert's house to sleep or to fool around or whatever they do at 6:30 in the morning. And Mark Fisher had left. The blanket was a throw blanket on the back of my chair. And he had it over his shoulders when he was leaving. He wanted Angel DiPietro because that was his friend. They went to college together. They went to college to Fairfield University. And that's who he was going to get so he could go back to college. And the body was found 50 feet from Albert Cleary's window. But it took years to unravel what happened. And we may never know everything. However, the tabloids did say that Mark Fisher was wrapped in a blanket and thrown like garbage. They also said early on that he had gotten shot here at my house and dragged and thrown on Argyle Road. I'm on Stratford Road. The body was on Argyle Road. There was, I'm not sure if 9, 10, or 11 911 calls came in, and they all stated, and the 911 calls came in on Argyle Road, saying they heard 5 gunshots. So if he was killed in my house, why didn't the phone calls come from my neighbors? They came from Albert Cleary's neighbors. It just gets crazier and crazier.
I wish I could show my screen because I wish I could show that graphic that you have on the website, on John's website, because it shows like how many 911 calls there were and how all the houses that are around where he was found, they all not only heard it, they called 911, and yet the only house that claims they didn't hear anything was whose house? Albert Cleary's house. He's the only one that, no, we didn't hear anything. Where everybody else on that entire block heard what happened.
And there was a family that said they heard a guy and a girl arguing right before the 5 gunshots. Who's the guy and girl that was arguing? And the only people that left this house was Albert Cleary and Angel DiPietro. Now, keep in mind, they were never indicted, never brought to trial, never. The one that was brought to trial was Antonio Russo. Okay, now this story is, can I have 3 or 4 hours, please?
I know, it is so complex. It's crazy.
Look, we do believe Antonio Russo is the murderer. I do believe that. He confessed. He confessed twice. Now, just so your viewers understand, we are going back to court again. The very first time that John got the reversal on prosecutorial misconduct because of John Avito, it was reinstated based on this. It was reinstated because the judge said, the chief judge said, that even though we do admit that there was serious misconduct in John's trial, we're going to reinstate it because there was overwhelming evidence against him. Overwhelming evidence.
Right, because they basically said that there was no prejudice, that that the verdict would have been the same even if they had disclosed this information from the attorney about the stuff with the snitch, right? That's basically what the highest court said. They said that they reinstated the conviction because they don't think that it would have changed the verdict even if that had been disclosed. Correct?
They said it was harmless error.
Right.
Harmless error, harmless error, harmless error. I'm saying, how could this be harmless when, first of all, John is innocent? Second of all, there was no evidence. Tell me what this evidence is. And in their decision, they say the blankets. Okay? Common sense. He left with the blanket. That doesn't make anybody guilty of anything. He left with the blanket. The tabloids said he was wrapped in the blanket, when in fact, if you see the pictures, the blanket was at his feet. So it fell. He probably was fist fighting and it fell. In addition, John said from the very beginning, yeah, that's my blanket. I let him have it. It was drizzling that morning. He did not have a jacket. John took these kids in because they had no place to go. And the second thing was the gun, okay? There was a guy who testified and said that John said for him to get rid of the gun, okay? The guy recanted. He said he lied, that Nicolazzi threatened him. If he doesn't say X, Y, and Z, they were going to take his little daughter off of him because he had 2 violations, drinking and driving. And we will take your daughter off of you if you don't say X, Y, and Z. So he recanted. He came clean. So the evidence that they said, the Court of Appeals, was overwhelming evidence was flimsy.
Right.
So
because the other recantations were those witnesses were leveraged as well. Because they were leveraged because Lauren, is it Lauren?
Lauren
her father's her father was in prison, and they basically threatened her to make her father's life more difficult or whatever they threatened her with if she didn't testify. And she was John's girlfriend, correct? At the time?
Yes, it was a rocky relationship. They'd been together for about 5 years. Like when he was 15, they were, childhood sweethearts, and things were getting a little rocky. I really feel for Lauren. I feel really bad. They put her through hell. They were interrogating her over and over again. She was like 19 years old. And she went through a lot. And then she finally cracked and said, I will say what you want me to say. We received an affidavit from her, and it just breaks my heart what they've done to her. Nicolazzi, too. Nicolazzi and a detective. They said to her over and over again, they brought her in. But on this particular day, when she finally threw up her hands and said, all right, I'll do it. The detective, the way she describes it, the detective took his chair, dragged it, and got up in her face. and said, listen to me, Lauren, this will all go away if you just say John said he gave the co-defendant, Antonio Russo, the gun. What they were trying to say was, if one person gets up on the stand and says John gave him the gun, and then he went and committed this crime, and then another one says John got rid of the gun, the jury's going to come back with guilty based on all lies. She said, but John didn't say that to me. John didn't say it. John didn't say it. They said, you know what, the detective, you know what, Lauren? It's not like you're saying that John said he killed the kid. All you're saying is that he gave him the gun. What's the big deal? And you'll be out from under this. Your father will have an easy time. We will not reveal this very personal information about you to your dad. That's another story, what they did to this poor woman. And she said, okay, I'll say it. And it took her about 13 years to come forward with the help of her husband. She got married. She had a baby. She lived her life. She said she didn't think in a million years by her saying, John said he gave him the gun, that John would get life in prison. She said she was devastated that that was the sentence to felony murder.
And so, Angel DiPietro, she didn't recant, but where did she end up working afterward?
The district attorney's office.
Any guesses? She was a witness that testified. She was the one that left with Albert Cleary, the house, and they heard of a female. So what other female could it have been? Probably her. She changed her story over and over again. She gave like 6 different statements. None of them matched. And then she testified in court basically to alibi Albert Cleary. Essentially, it was the only reason she testified was so they could make sure that he looked innocent. And after the trial, later on, she ended up working for that very same prosecutor's office as an ADA, a prosecutor.
Now, with all of this said, you have to keep in mind, also I wanted a fair trial for my son.
Right.
If I have a fair trial and we present all this evidence, the jury's coming back with not guilty. Not guilty. If you get people telling the truth and not lies, lie after lie, and it's always because there's leverage over their head, threats over their head. And right. Who's doing all that? That's Nicolazzi, Anastasia Nicolazzi. If she did that to my son, you know damn well she did it to others. And, recently she lectured at Harvard University. And I said, do they know what she is capable of? What it is she's young, she's pretty, she's in physical shape, and she's well-spoken, and people are fooled by her. They are truly fooled by her. She will do whatever it takes. I do need to back up a little bit and tell your audience exactly what they did to Lauren. Lauren and John were in love, and they wrote love letters to each other. And to this day, I don't know how Anastasia Nicolazzi got hold of one of Lauren Calciano's letters. And Lauren Calciano talks about how she had an abortion from my son. Maybe she was 17, maybe 18, I don't know. And Anastasia Nicolazzi threatens Lauren with exposing this very personal information to her father. Tracy, to her father.
Sorry, what, honey? Come downstairs at all? No, why? Sorry, my husband just had in. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Hi, husband.
He walked out again.
Oh, so here you have this young girl who would be mortified to, for her father to find out this information. She wanted to get married in a Catholic church with the white dress. Her father adores her. She did not want to disappoint her father. Lauren doesn't find the strength to come forward until she's all grown up, married, and has her own baby. And I tried to put myself in her shoes. Yeah, this prosecutor, 40 years old, bullied a 19-year-old, knew exactly what to do to have her humiliated, and that's the reason why she threw up her hands and agreed with the detective to just say, okay, I'll just say he gave him the gun, knowing it's a lie. When she came forward, I was beyond devastated, and I knew what they did to her. We haven't spoken. I haven't spoken to her in 15 years, but it took guts. But she had to grow up, and she had to be brave. And her husband supported her. So, and these are her words. She said, "My husband supported me." And did that get John out?
No.
Tracy? No.
We need to back up a little bit, though, because we never really finished talking about what happened when you got Jason Allo to admit that he had essentially committed juror misconduct. You know, that he said, because he said himself, I should never have been on that trial. It was illegal for me to be on that trial. And somebody asked earlier, and I did say, yes, she did get him on tape. She got him recorded saying this. So what happened when you tried to present that to the court?
Oh, wow. Okay. Audience, they're going to be shocked. This is the American justice system. So I have all the tapes, and I bring them to John's lawyer, his appeal lawyer. And I told him what I did. The lawyer had to take a seat. He couldn't believe what I did. He was like, oh, my God. And he goes, I have to go over all the tapes. We have to have them transcribed. I have to write a motion. I have to submit the motion. So this took time. In the meantime, it leaked from I believe from his office. And that's how Vanity Fair got the story. And he calls me up. He was blowing a fit. And I was like, I was going in court anyway. So it gets crazy. So we have the hearing. We have our big day. And I figured this is it. The judge is going to feel duped. The judge is going to be pissed off at the juror for lying to sneak. It was a corrupt jury. It's time for a do-over. Nope. You know what happened?
Well, I know, but
he denied us a hearing. He didn't even hold a hearing. He called a press conference. A press conference instead of us giving us our hearing, because then we would have been able to subpoena Jason Allo, the juror number 8, and ask him these questions. We could have called his cousin and asked, did you hate Jews? Should you have been on the jury? Did you lie on the questionnaire? No, we didn't even have that opportunity. We were totally robbed. And the Judge Alan Maris, instead of holding the hearing, he said he should call upon the legislators to create a law against people like Doreen Giuliano. How dare you go undercover? He said he was going to call upon the legislators. So my lawyer at the time said, Your Honor, with all due respect, we actually have a law, and it's called contempt of court and perjury, and the juror is the one who committed it. Well, that didn't go over very well.
And the judge essentially accused you of misconduct.
Yep.
Right? He said there was misconduct here on the part of you.
Correct. Now, I exposed the truth. Okay. So now isn't the duty of the courts to be truth seekers? They got to be truth seekers and find out if this is the truth or not just bury everything. Find out who's the liar here. And we didn't even there's more than over and over again. I'm so frustrated over and over again. John did not get a fair trial. No. And that's all I'm asking. I'm asking Eric Gonzalez, Danny Chun, give John a fair trial. Everybody knows he didn't get a fair trial. And this could happen to anyone. We expose the corruption and instead you bury it. Why? Is this going to open up a can of worms for her 34 straight wins, 35 counting my son? It's going to open up a can of worms on all these cases that she says that she won. She never lost the case.
And I added to the ticker what you asked me to tell everyone down at the bottom. To say that you were asking people to write the judge. That's not something that I actually ever encourage people to do, but if that's what you wanted that, so that's why we put it up there.
Well, I think, if they do feel compelled, it would be nice to ask the judge to give John a fair trial. I am begging for a fair trial. I believe Eric Gonzalez should insist that John have a fair trial. I have to give him some credit right now. Okay, because why we are back in court once again is because there was a second jailhouse informant. And this jailhouse informant back in 2005 had bumped into John's co-defendant, Antonio Russo. Now, Antonio Russo was one of the people here at the party. We do believe that he robbed and killed Mark Fisher.
Right.
And we believe that because he confessed to that twice, two times.
And immediately after, like 7 a.m. in the morning, he went to a friend's house and cut off his dreadlocks, which supposedly he'd had for a long time and was very proud of. And then he hightailed it to California. So there's something that doesn't scream guilt. That would be it.
That's right. And you know what? John was drunk that morning. He went to sleep. So it gets crazy. So Eric Gonzalez, his platform is reform. But yet he dug his heels in and continues to fight us on John's wrongful conviction. He appealed the second department when we got the full panel to say John did not get a fair trial, and they threw it out on prosecutorial misconduct. He appealed that decision. He's digging his heels in. He knows. Come on, Eric, you know John didn't get a fair trial. All of Brooklyn knows he didn't get a fair trial. So, 2018, I think it was, we were preparing for a new trial. John's lawyer, Mark Betterer, who I think is fantastic. He's a hard worker. He's brilliant, and he doesn't stop. He believes in John's innocence, and he just goes at it like a bulldog. So he wanted all of the evidence that's sitting in Eric Gonzalez's office so that we could prepare for trial. In the meantime, the Court of Appeals reinstated the conviction. But we do get boxes and boxes of evidence. And as Mark Betterer rummages through the evidence, he finds a tape recording that was never given to us, never given to the defense, never given to Russo's counselor. And as he listens to the tape, it is a second jailhouse informant named Joseph Ingram. And Joseph Ingram is telling Nicolazzi on the tape recording that Russo confessed to him while they were in Rikers in 2005. We never knew about this tape. Nothing. We knew zero. So I lost you here for a second. I don't know why.
Yes.
Okay. So we're like flipping out, and the Court of Appeals doesn't know about this. So he asked the Court of Appeals. This is right. We get the boxes, and they are deciding what to do. So he asked if he could bring back this motion and include this additional information, and they said no. And then in the meantime, they denied it. So Mark Betterer is saying, well, we're just going to go back in with another motion. 44010 motion is what they call them, on a Brady violation. And you can explain what a Brady is.
Everybody knows. Everyone here knows.
Yeah. Okay. So another Brady violation. But I have to give credit to Eric Gonzalez's office because they are the ones who turned over this Brady information. And we are back in court with it. And like I said, I am begging them to give John a fair trial. 15 long years. And right now, Tracy, we're dealing with the coronavirus. So, I'm not sleeping at night, worried sick about him.
What is the situation in his prison right now with that?
Right now, it's not in there, but I'm told it's a matter of time before it gets in there.
And he's no longer in Rikers, though, right? He's somewhere else now. He's not in Rikers anymore.
Well, Rikers is considered holding, and he was there for about a year.
Okay.
Because we were waiting for trial, we got the reversal. Once you get the reversal, you should not be upstate in maximum security prison. They bring you down to holding.
Okay.
And he was there for a year, and then they reinstated it. He was sick to his stomach, and they brought him back up. So yeah, so he's in Coxsackie prison, and it's a crazy, crazy world we live in. You can't have alcohol to clean your cell. You can't have gloves. You got the phone that you're calling home, and there's germs on the phone. You can't have a mask. My friend Kathy Cole just recently gave me 120 masks. So John asked the captain if I could send them in, and they're for everybody. I know there's a lot. We don't have 3,000, and I wish I did, but John is more than happy to give them to the correction officers and some of the inmates. And so we're waiting for that answer. I mean, they should help us protect them. They can't have any disinfectants. They can't. So they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable. And let's just keep our fingers crossed that these masks are allowed in. They're paper masks.
I want to cover one thing really quick, and then people have questions, so I want to get to the questions too.
Okay.
Now, we did mention conviction review units and conviction integrity units, those things. So what happened with that, with John's case in the conviction review unit?
Okay, so that was many years ago. We Mark Betterill put John's case before them because they're supposed to review the case and decide or recommend whether it should be reversed. And they recommended that it not be reversed. And then there is an independent panel that they write the letter of recommendation to the independent panel, so they're not accused of misconduct, and we are allowed to write a letter. Now, John's conviction consists of mountain high information. We were allowed one letter to convince them that it should be reversed. We have no idea what they submitted to the independent panel. Not until years later do we find out that independent panel, the lawyers that are on that independent panel, donate money to our district attorney. That's one thing. There was 5 lawyers, ADAs, on the conviction review unit, and those very same lawyers were the lawyers who worked on my son's case in 2005. So how are they impartial? They were reviewing themselves, whether they committed any erroneous, activity, mistakes. So they were reviewing themselves. And in addition, Nicolazzi, they were reviewing Anna Sigurd Nicolazzi, who they worked with for 20 years. So really, there's no fairness. It's,
And then one more thing, because you told me there was a story, the Christmas tree. What is the story about the Christmas tree?
Oh, the Christmas tree still, it's behind me. I chose this seat so that I can tell the story. John got arrested right before Christmas. He was on his way home. It was about 11 o'clock at night. He did some Christmas shopping. That was in 2004. I believe December 21st or 22nd. And he had we do have a lot of Jewish friends. So he had some Hanukkah gifts and some Christmas gifts, and he never made it in the door. The cops grabbed him right outside my house, and they took the gifts. And yeah, so it breaks my heart. I'm stubborn. I said, my John is going to come home someday, and he's going to decorate this tree. I'm never going to take this tree down. My son, John, and Matthew are decorating this tree. So it stands here bare, and I got to have hope. If I take this tree down, Tracy, I'm going to feel like I lost. I gave up. I didn't have hope. I just can't take this tree down. I can't.
No, that's understandable. Completely understandable.
In the middle of July, if somebody comes to my house, they're like, what is this tree doing there? It's not laziness, people. It's hope. That's what this is. It's hope.
And you have to have that. You have to keep that. That's very important.
A fair trial, okay? Just
right.
That's all we ask for. If we get our fair trial, John will come home. Because
right, absolutely.
No evidence against him. Nothing points to him. And the real killer confessed. I have no idea what Angel DiPietro and Albert Cleary did. I believe in my heart that they witnessed it. There's more to that story. But I have no idea what they did. We have a man here that says he followed him, he was robbing him, and he shot him, and he said John had nothing to do with this.
Okay, so we have just a few really quick questions. We have like 3 minutes, so let me see what they are here. First was, are there trial transcripts online anywhere?
Well, the trial transcripts, online, probably not. I had to buy them. They cost me a few $1,000s. But the trial transcript is filled with lies. The Court of Appeals based their decision on the trial transcript. But those people confessed and said, I lied during trial. So if you read it, you're going to say, oh, John gave the gun. John got rid of the gun. What did John Oviedo say? John Oviedo said John confessed. So you're reading this, and it's all false. It's all false. So they're not online, but I could get them to anybody who wants. What you have to read is those affidavits, those recantations.
And those are online. Those are on the website, correct?
Yeah. The website isn't that good. I need help.
But I saw Lauren's, I think, was on there.
Thank God. Thank God. Right.
Yeah. What about the 911 calls? Have the 911 calls ever been released?
Probably not. I never heard them, but I know about them. I got to see the sheet, and the sheet says all the addresses of who called and what they said. But the audio I never heard. But I did get to read all the different 911 calls.
Okay. And then the last question was, can we ask if John would like to receive any letters and or cards from people?
Oh, he would love it. He would, especially now when they're in lockdown and he's not allowed any visitors and he's got to just stay in his cell. It's hard. It's like, really, it's solitary confinement. They do let them out for an hour a day, and they let them out for phone calls, but the phone calls are only 8 minutes. So if he was to receive cards and letters, oh yeah, that's brings up his spirit. Thank you.
Then do you want to give out his address right now? You were supposed to give it to me ahead of time, and you never did. So,
can you put it on your website?
I can. Yeah, I can put it in the Facebook group when later on. That's fine. Just get it to me.
You need his DIN number. So it's John Giuca 06A1170 at Coxsackie Correctional Facility in Coxsackie, New York. But so as soon as you Google that, they'll find it.
Okay. I'll have to go back and get this from there if my mods weren't able to write it down yet. But okay, that's great. Well, I really loved having you on, and I'm actually going to add Ricky right now, since he's waiting so patiently backstage. I didn't know if you wanted to come on or just wait backstage and listen and kind of lurk back there. So, but you could hear everything. You could hear everything, right?
Yeah, I did. I heard everything well. Hey, how are you? Very passionate. Love her energy. Love what you're doing. Love what you stand for. She really serving as an example for other families who feel hopeless, who feel distraught, and they either go in fight or flight mode. And you are a fighter, and everybody is seeing that. And I really love that. So.
And how long were you incarcerated, Ricky? How long were you in prison?
23 years myself, 23 years and 3 months. I've only been home 8 months now. And so my heart goes out to her when she tells the story. I know the legal impediments, the hurdles, the niggling on the part of the state, these petty technicalities when the evidence is right before you. Clearly the man is innocent. I know what it's like. I just come home 8 months ago and barely survived that petty, unethical, unnecessary fighting that the state does when the truth finally comes out. It's hard to hear your story. My hearts and prayers goes out to you.
Same to you. Same to you. Yeah, their knee-jerk reaction is deny, deny, deny. And it makes no sense. It's like totally ridiculous, their decisions. They just, like, they side with the prosecutors. They don't care. And that's the American justice system. They don't care. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, the injustice system, as I like to call it. But Doreen, if you ever are feeling down, give Ricky a call because he is so full of positivity. Like anytime you feel like you're giving up, call Ricky because he found his calling. I mean, like it's hard to believe that he was in prison for so long because he's so well spoken and he's so positive and he's so inspirational. That this whole public speaking and advocacy thing is really his calling. I mean, it really was. I don't know what you wouldn't have done if you hadn't been wrongfully convicted, but you know, things happen for a reason, I guess.
Yeah,
because
I agree, Tracy. I agree.
Yeah, he is. It's amazing.
And she's right. Feel free to reach out, and if you ever need some type of help or some type of push, I'm all for advocacy and showing support. Even before I came home, my lawyers was fighting for my case or for my cause, and I had already began preparing my mind to start fighting for other people's cause. Right before COVID-19 really slammed our region here in Missouri, I was up testifying before lawmakers at our state capitol about these issues right here. So I'm very serious about moving the proverbial needle when it comes to this injustice system, and whatever I can do to lend my voice of support, please reach out and let me know.
I'll get her your information so that if she ever wants to reach out. Doreen, it was phenomenal having you on. Thank you so much. And you are welcome to come on anytime. You want to talk more? You just give me a message and I will have you on right then, anytime you want. Okay.
Fair trial. May 28th is John's hearing. Fair trial.
Remind me if you can, or I'll try to remember. Oh my gosh, I'll have to put that in my calendar. But you'll update, right, in your Facebook page then, or John's Facebook page?
I will.
Okay, so I know what's going on. All right, thank you so much for being with us.